You're Doing What is billed as a show for people who are doing things that may upset their parents. But really, this is a show for anyone who's doing something unconventional and someone who feels misunderstood or judged. Today on the show we have Kaylia Metcalfe. She's a freelance writer, community organizer, author of a book of short stories called Links, and one of the most gloriously unconventional people I know. Kaylia, welcome to the show.
Edwina, it's so nice to see you. I feel like I should have worn something more unconventional.
You look fantastic. And that's part of it, you know? You don't know necessarily that you're unconventional at first glance all the time.
I do usually pass as relatively normal until I open up my mouth.
One of the things I like about you. I understand you're pregnant. Congratulations.
Why, thank you. Yes, I am quite pregnant. And I appreciate you setting up the camera so that that's not very apparent. But it's true. I am quite pregnant at this point.
While you're engaged, I understand that you're not going to be married until sometime after the baby is born. I understand this is hard for some people to accept. What's the idea behind this?
Well, not only are we not going to get married until after the baby's born, we're not going to get married until the baby's around 2. So,
really?
You know, she'll be toddler-esque and toddling about at the wedding. We have been together for almost 5 years, so this isn't a fly-by-night sort of, oops, we're pregnant sort of thing. It was a planned pregnancy, but our plan was always to get married later, and we really have a lot of reasons for not wanting to rush into it. Part of it is that we didn't want our marriage to be dictated by the social norms. First comes love, then comes marriage, then comes baby in the baby carriage. Well, I'm not planning on using a typical pram baby carriage anyway, so we figured, well, why go with any of the part of that convention? But really, I'm selfish. I'd like to go on a honeymoon, and I'm planning on breastfeeding. Those things don't really work well together, right? So, my honeymoon, I would like it to be romantic and sweet, and just the two of us. So she needs to be a little bit older. We certainly didn't want to rush into having a wedding when we found out we were pregnant. We wanted to be able to plan it and have it be the type of wedding and the type of, party that we'd always wanted. And we want to do it in Santa Cruz. Kind of want to do it in December. So she's going to be about 2.5 years old before it happens.
I like your thinking.
And I'll have you know, this is all me. My fiance would be pretty excited about us moving up the date and going ahead and getting married. And he's asked a couple times, "Are you sure?" And I keep saying, "Nope, nope, nope." And his family keeps saying, "Well, you should make him marry you." And I'm like, "No, it's me. It's all me. I'm the one saying we can wait. We got plenty of time." And again, I'd really like that nice fancy honeymoon. So yes,
that's unusual. That's what most people would not expect. Usually thought to be the other way around, that the woman is pushing for,
Indeed. I know it's definitely me.
Imagine that surprises people.
It does, actually.
And speaking of your baby, I understand that you're having a doula assist. Doula, is that a Greek pastry?
Well, it is Greek, but it's not a pastry.
Oh, I like pastry.
I do too, but our doula her name is Amber. She's lovely, and doula just basically means woman who serves. And it used to be that when women would have babies, all the women would get together, and you'd have your aunties and your grandmas and whatnot, and your older sisters who'd had children, and they'd help you through the whole process, and they were your birthing coaches. Well, nowadays, that's not really how it happens.
Right.
But statistically speaking, if you have a birth assistant or a birth coach, the deliveries go smoother, there's fewer medical problems. Basically, the doula's job is there to not only to coach and to be assistants, but to give dad or grandma or whoever else is your birth, assistant kind of a break, So in my case, if Matthew needs to go take a walk or get something to eat or lay down for a 20-minute cat nap, she can kind of step in. She's also doing other things. She's taught us different massage techniques and how he can make my back feel better. Quite a good thing. Or different exercises that I can do to prepare myself. She's a font of medical knowledge, so she's been able to help us kind of transverse this last couple months of what is this, and is this pain okay, and okay, that feels weird, and all of that kind of stuff. Another thing that she does is, besides the massage and helping us, again, transverse these last couple months of the pregnancy, is that she helps us get the kind of birth experience that we want. So we have some very specific things we want. In the hospital, I want the lights to be lowered because That just makes me more comfortable when the lighting is a little bit more dimmed. It makes everybody more calm. Well, of course, the medical staff is going to turn the light on every time they come in to check on you. So one of her jobs is to turn the light off every time. So it's not something I have to think about or I have to ask someone to do. It'll just be done. And things like that. It's just kind of an assistant, someone who's been through a lot of births, who's watched a lot of births, who can kind of help us navigate this whole birth process. So we're pretty excited, actually.
I think that's very smart. And I understand you're not going to use a pain medication during labor. Are you some kind of hippie?
I am not, actually. I have hippie-like tendencies, it is true. But no, I'm definitely not a hippie granola, new age, touchy-feely, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey kind of person. In fact, I am very pro-medicine. The baby will be born in the hospital. That's not really negotiable. However, I have a very bad tolerance for narcotic drugs. They tend to not agree with me. We made a little list at one point. Okay, so Demerol makes Kaylia paranoid and angry. And I thought, well, that's probably not what I need to be feeling during labor. And then, Darvocet makes Kaylia regress to being a 3-year-old where she doesn't understand complex sentences. Again, not ideal. So, kind of going through that list. And I know in labor they use a drug called Stadol. Obviously, I've never taken Stadol. I have no idea how it'll affect me. I do know that I'm one of the 2% in the population who has dramatic adverse effects to anti-nausea medicine, because in the hospital sometimes they'll give you an anti-nausea, and it's not actually a narcotic, but it made me kind of trippy. I was talking to people who weren't there. I kind of blacked out. I was crying, but also very excited about this random things in the room because I thought they looked like hats. It was just not good. So we really like to avoid any kind of drug interventions, partly just because we don't know how I'm going to react to it, and that's kind of a scary concept. So obviously, that's the ideal situation, but I keep saying, and I'll say it again, I reserve the right to change my mind and take all the drugs I want if it becomes too much. But my hope is that with the preparation we're doing and with having this sort of an idealized version and a goal and having our birth team very much on board with this and understanding, and again, that's part of what the doula is there for. She can help us change positions or move around or do other things so that we can kind of alleviate some of the pain or the discomfort. And she's there really as a coach. She's not emotionally attached to me like my fiance or my mother is. So to them, me being in pain is horrific. But to her, me being in pain is part of the process. And she can kind of help coach us through it, hopefully. So
very good. It sounds like you've given this a lot of good logical thought.
I have. Actually, I changed pretty dramatically. When we first found out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, so when do I schedule that cesarean? I'll just put it on the calendar, show up, lay down, go to sleep, wake up, baby, I thought that would make perfect sense. Why would you do it any other way? But then I started reading and talking to a lot of people, and I thought, well, I'm only doing this the one time, so it'd be an interesting thing to experience.
For sure.
And not only that, but, there are more medical issues when you have a cesarean, so, okay, not that they're horrible evil. I was born via cesarean, so obviously we come out just fine.
That's right.
But it is one of those things that if you can't avoid it, and so then I started looking more into birthing practices, and then that's kind of when I thought, well, maybe a doula would actually, I have to tell you, the first time someone said, you should get a doula, I was like, whatever, that's crazy talk. I'm not giving birth at home in a pit, No. But then I've researched, and I interviewed several before we eventually settled on one who met our needs perfectly.
I like hearing about the process and the change in your mind and the research that you've put into it.
Definitely. Lots of research. Well, I'm a stay-at-home freelance writer, so I have a lot of time to sit on my keister and do research. It's basically what I do.
Speaking of writing, which publications do you write for? I understand you have a few that you write for.
Yes, I'm a regular contributor to the Gay Central Valley blog, so I do news pieces and op-ed pieces there. I also write an op-ed once a month for Community Alliance, which is a very liberal, very progressive local paper here in Fresno. And if you know anything about Fresno, you know that it's slightly ironic that they have a very liberal, very progressive local newspaper, but they do. It's put out by the Center for Nonviolence, so that should give you a little bit of a clue. Anyways, and so I write an op-ed piece and sometimes some event coverage for them as well. And then I also write for Blade Magazine, and Blade Magazine is a Southern California publication. And just to give you an example, and I think in the last 3 or 4 months, every single cover art has been half-naked scrumptious-looking young gay men frolicking in some way, either in their undies or near a pool or whatever. So it's definitely for a very specific target audience, which would be the LGBT community. There's something in there for LGBs and Ts, but yeah, it's definitely geared in that direction. And so I write a reoccurring column for that every month about things going on in the Central Valley, in Fresno specifically, that might appeal to the Southern California crowd in hopes that they will come up to Fresno or the Central Valley and come visit us and bring some of their tourist dollars this direction.
I say, well, I must say that I'm surprised to hear that an expectant mother-to-be who's engaged is writing for so many gay publications.
Yes, it is quite surprising for a lot of people, especially when you add in that I'm on the board of directors, the secretary for Gay Central Valley. And the reason for all of that is that I identify as the B in the LGBT. And for your viewers who might not know, the L, is a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender community. So as a bisexual woman, I think I'm pretty lucky. I get both worlds, and I happen to currently be in love with a man, and we are monogamous and happy together and thus engaged and planning a child. But your sexuality, and this is something we talk a lot about at cultural competency trainings, your sexuality is not determined by who you happen to be sleeping with at the time. So I am a bisexual woman. I'm very proud to be a bisexual woman. And I love my LGBT brothers and sisters. I love being part of the community. And so basically I've been in the community way before, this current love of mine, who's now my fiance. And I plan to be part of that community, very active for years and years. And he, by the way, is a wonderful straight ally, very supportive, and we're very excited to be as welcomed and loved by our LGBT brothers and sisters as we are.
Well, you are just full of surprises.
Indeed. And that gets kind of into that passing thing too, especially in the bi world. Depending on who you're sleeping with, depending on who you show up at the party with,
right,
people put you in that default position of either gay or straight. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's important to kind of buck those conventions every now and then and say, you don't know that about me. I might be sleeping with a guy right now or a girl right now, and that's important when we do cultural competency to talk to youth as well. If just because you've had sex with somebody of the same gender does not mean that you're gay. Just because you've never had sex with somebody of the same gender does not mean that you're straight. Your sexuality can be fluid, and it can take you a while to figure out, and you can live out different ways, and it's very open. And so I think that that's really important for people to realize. And so I don't have to tell people that I'm bi. The default position is straight, and I could just coast through life being straight and happy and blah, blah, blah. But that's not good enough for me. I have to kind of flaunt the issue. I have to bring into conversations, oh yeah, well, I dated this woman once, or blah, blah, blah. I'm very proud to wear my rainbow delegation bracelet and things like that. I want to push the envelope, and I want to make people feel slightly uncomfortable, because then I hope that they'll realize that you can't look at somebody and decide that you know what their sexuality is based on these little clues that we give each other. So, yeah.
Very interesting.
And now I'll get off my soapbox, I promise.
Speaking of uncomfortable, I hear you have a blog, and that sometimes you write about your sex life. Isn't that a little bit too much information, as it were?
Well, it really depends on what level of information you're interested in getting, I suppose. Yes, I keep a personal blog. And I've written several times, but before I was in this monogamous relationship, I was dating a lot and having lots of adventures, and I would write about them because they were funny. The time I accidentally flashed this lady on the train and she almost choked to death. It was dramatic. Or ending up, head over, feet in the air, face down at the bottom of a garbage dumpster trying to get some stockings. That's quite the story too. The idea though is that these are funny things that happen to me, and I thought that people would enjoy reading them. Now I usually put a disclaimer at the top. This following post has to deal with my sex life. If you're not interested in knowing about my sex life, stop reading. What I find really funny are the people who contact me, Grandma, talking to you, and say, how could you possibly put this out there? And I say, well, did you not read the disclaimer? You obviously wanted to know, otherwise you would not have kept reading. So, now that I'm involved in a more serious relationship, I tend to not overshare quite so much, but there's still some kind of funny little things that happen, and that happens in everybody's sex lives or their dating lives, and I just think it's a good way to bring us together, and kind of, if we can laugh at ourselves, then it's a good thing.
That's a fine attitude, I have to say.
Yes.
Finally, and this might be the most controversial topic of all, you moved to Fresno from a lovely beach town. Tell me about that.
Yes, I was very happy in Santa Cruz, California. Beach town, perfect weather, laid-back liberal attitude. Moved to Fresno, middle of the Central Valley. It is currently 108 degrees today. It's going to be this way for weeks on end. And it's very, very conservative. The Tea Party actually started here in Clovis, which is basically right next door to Fresno. So yeah, that was quite a transition. Every time we came here and we'd tell people, oh, we just moved. Where'd you move from? Santa Cruz. They'd go, why? And we'd say, well, for me it was because I'm in love and he got a better job and I'm a writer. I can do that everywhere. So here I am, and that's why we're here. But yeah, and we don't plan on staying here forever. We'd like to get out of the Fresno area before the little one gets to school age. But yeah, that was a pretty big transition for us, moving from Santa Cruz to Fresno. And thankfully, we've made some good friends here. We have a lovely little group. Being active in the atheist skeptics community, being active in the gamer geeky community, being active in the LGBT community, we've managed to have quite a friend and support system created here. So yeah, it's been good.
Marvelous, marvelous. So is there anything else you'd like our viewers to know?
Well, I guess I could say that, being unconventional is a good thing, and bucking the system and not being what people expect is always good. I try to do that in my writings. I like reading and I like writing things that have a twist at the end where you think you're going along knowing what's going to happen and then suddenly something changes, because I think that that's what life is. That's what life is all about, is you make a plan and then something comes along and changes it and you have to adapt. So the more you can do that in your personal life, the easier you can do it in all other areas. So there you go.
Kaylia, it has been absolutely fascinating having you on the show. Thank you so much for coming, and good luck with your baby-to-be.
Thank you so much, Edwina. It was great having you here today.